There comes a point in life when you're just done being pulled into emotional storms caused by others. It's that exact moment when you no longer want to react, no longer want to suffer, and you're tired of falling apart every time someone misunderstands you, disrespects you, or doesn't choose you. That moment, though it might seem small, is actually a wake-up call. It's when you start to see that your inner world holds way more power than anything happening around you. And once that truth clicks, truly sinks in, then finally, nothing and no one can shake you anymore. But how do you get there? How do you stop being someone who's constantly at the mercy of other people's moods and actions? How do you become that person who isn't fazed by judgment, doesn't crumble when someone leaves, and doesn't lose themselves in chaos? Carl Jung spent his life trying to answer those exact questions. He dove deep into the human mind, into the shadows, into everything most people would rather ignore, like the unconscious and the archetypes shaping your life without you even knowing. Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." Think about that. Every time someone's words hurt you, every time something shakes you emotionally, it's not about them. It's a message from within, a reflection of something unresolved in you. It's an inner wound that's just waiting to be triggered. The real issue is never outside. It's inside. And that's actually good news. Because when you get this, the outside world stops controlling you. People can leave, lie, ignore, or look down on you, and you stay solid. Because you've broken one of the biggest illusions, the idea that others control how you feel. Most people live like leaves in the wind, bouncing around, dependent on others' moods, gestures, and love. And when those things disappear, they fall apart. But that's not real living. That's emotional slavery. If you're still here reading this, it's because you're ready to break free from all that. This message isn't for people who want to keep blaming others. It's not for those stuck in a victim mindset. It's for you, the one who's tired of reacting, who feels something powerful deep inside and knows it's time to wake it up. Jung didn't show up to give you quick fixes. He came to hold up the toughest mirror, the one that shows you your real self, without masks, without excuses. And that's where everything starts to shift. When you stop chasing peace out there and start building it within. When you stop needing others to validate you because you already know your worth. When rejection no longer scares you because you know no one can truly reject you if you never abandon yourself. That's real strength. Not loud, not pushy, but quiet, grounded, and unshakable. The kind of strength that comes from knowing who you are. Here at Psychium, we don't talk to you like you're a child who needs comforting. We speak to you as someone waking up, someone ready to reclaim their power, someone done with repeating the same painful cycles, and willing to do the deep inner work to finally be free. When you understand how your mind works, when you start seeing your patterns, your traumas, your projections, then nothing and no one can knock you off balance again. So if this resonates with you, if you feel like now is your time to transform, join us. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, and share it with someone else who's ready to wake up. We're building a strong, conscious community here, not for ego, but because the more of us there are, the more people we can help break free from unnecessary suffering and remind them of who they really are, whole, capable, and untouchable. Get ready, because what's coming isn't just another speech. It's a deep dive into your unconscious. And if you're brave enough to go through it, What you'll find on the other side is a version of yourself that's so free, so strong, so unshakable, that you'll look at the world and realize nothing and no one can ever throw you off balance again. Reaching that place where absolutely nothing can shake you doesn't mean shutting yourself off from life. It doesn't mean running away, becoming emotionally numb, or wearing a cold fake shield. No, it means something way more real and transformative. It marks the beginning of the hardest and most freeing journey of all, facing yourself. Jung understood this. He knew that the real enemy isn't out there. It's not the one who betrayed you, the one who left, ignored, or humiliated you. The true enemy is the part of you that still craves validation, that still aches with wounds, begging for someone else's approval. It's not other people who cause your pain. It's the part of you that sees what they do as a threat, a loss, or proof that something's missing. Other people are just mirrors, triggers, messengers. As long as you don't understand that, you'll stay stuck in a loop, reacting, trying to control everything outside just to quiet the chaos inside. But here's the truth. The world won't stop spinning. People won't stop being who they are. You can't spend your life expecting the outside world to fix your unresolved pain. The only real power you have is to go inward, to face your own darkness and figure out why some things cut so deep, why certain people can shake you so easily, why certain words or actions reopen wounds you thought had healed. When you go there, into your shadow, you'll discover something that's both terrifying and fascinating. Everything you've been projecting onto others is actually inside you. All the pain you felt has been pointing to the parts of yourself you haven't fully accepted or healed. People spend years trying to rearrange their external lives, avoiding toxic people, sidestepping conflict, staying in cozy little bubbles where they think nothing can hurt them. But that's just the illusion of control. You can move to another country, cut ties with everyone, shut the world out, but the same problems will follow you in different forms, with different faces, but always the same emotional sting whenever something reminds you of what's still unresolved inside. Change doesn't start on the outside. It never has. Jung made that crystal clear. What you refuse to bring into the light of awareness will keep repeating, playing out in your life over and over like fate, until you finally face it, understand it, and embrace it. And when you do, something powerful shifts. Not because the world around you changes, but because you do. You stop reacting the way you used to. You're no longer the same person. You're not controlled by other people's actions or approval. You don't need their respect to respect yourself. You don't need their love to love yourself. You don't need their validation to recognize your own worth. This path isn't easy. It's lifelong work. It takes real courage, because looking at yourself hurts. It hurts to admit how dependent you've been. It hurts to see how often you let others fix what you were too scared to face. It hurts to realize that sometimes you were the one betraying yourself, staying quiet, putting up with things, losing yourself, just to be accepted. But once you see it, once you truly understand it, that's when freedom begins. You stop begging for love, stop chasing attention, stop needing permission to feel worthy. You stop defending yourself every time someone criticizes you. You don't have to explain yourself anymore, because you know who you are. You've accepted yourself. Your center is solid, and it doesn't depend on anyone or anything outside of you. This isn't apathy. It's not being emotionally shut off. Actually, it's the opposite. It's the deepest connection you can have with yourself. It's a kind of peace that doesn't disappear, even when the world is falling apart around you. It's a kind of strength that doesn't come from life being perfect, but from being grounded within yourself. Jung said, "Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakens." That one line says it all. As long as you're focused on what others are doing, on what you're missing, on how the outside world needs to change for you to be happy, you'll keep chasing empty dreams. But the moment you turn inward, the moment you face what still hurts, what's still in the dark, you wake up. And when you wake up, you realize something that changes everything. No one has power over you unless you give it to them. This doesn't mean you become cold or indifferent. It doesn't mean you stop loving or that you shut people out. It simply means you no longer need anyone else to feel whole. You're with people because you choose to be, not because you're clinging to them for a sense of completeness. When someone leaves, you don't fall apart because you've made a commitment to never abandon yourself. Rejection doesn't break you anymore because you know it has nothing to do with your worth. You don't feel the urge to please everyone because you've finally learned how to please yourself. And that's where true freedom begins. Not a freedom based on everything going your way, but a deep peace with whatever comes your way. Jung also spoke about archetypes, these unconscious roles we take on to fit into the world. Some of us live stuck in the victim role, always waiting for someone to save us. Others play the savior, constantly trying to fix people as a way to prove our own value. And then there are those who stay trapped in the wound of the inner child, refusing to grow up just to avoid responsibility. But the truth is, all of these roles cause suffering. They aren't who we really are. They're survival masks, coping strategies. We build them to protect ourselves, but eventually they become our prison. The real transformation begins when we can see those masks for what they are, name them, notice when they take over, and then start making a new choice. Because you can only truly be yourself when you stop pretending to be someone else. And once you do that, once you dare to just be who you are, no masks, no defenses, the way you see the world changes completely. Not because the world itself changes, but because you stop viewing everything through the lens of lack, wounds, or unmet expectations. You start seeing things with presence, with truth, with strength. And that's when the impossible happens. You stop reacting. You're no longer that pendulum, swinging back and forth depending on other people's behavior. You start creating from within, from your own center, your clarity, your purpose. This is exactly what Jung was pointing to. Not a life without emotions, but a life where your emotions don't rule you. A life where you can feel sadness without falling apart, anger without self-destruction, joy without becoming attached to it. A life where you can love without losing yourself, give without draining yourself, and receive without becoming dependent. A life where you show up fully as you are, with your rough edges, your light and your shadow. Not as a prisoner of your unconscious patterns, but as someone who's taken back the reins of their own mind. And when you're sitting on that inner throne, no one and nothing can shake you anymore. Not because the chaos disappears, but because it no longer consumes you. Not because people suddenly treat you better, but because you don't need them to. Not because life turns perfect, but because you've stopped asking it to be. You've surrendered, you've understood, you've integrated, and in that stillness, In that unshakable realization, you become what Jung called an individuated soul, a person who is truly whole within themselves. That is the deepest power a human being can know. That moment when you stop reacting, when someone's accusation doesn't hit you anymore, when someone's absence doesn't leave you broken, when gossip no longer threatens your peace, doesn't come from magic, and it's definitely not about suppressing your emotions. It's not about building a wall or escaping from what it means to be human. It comes from understanding. It happens when you truly realize that your pain wasn't caused by the world, but by how you saw it. That abandonment didn't come from someone walking away, but from you abandoning yourself every time you needed someone else to make you feel whole. That the pain wasn't in the words themselves, but in the meaning you gave them. It's not the betrayal that breaks you. It's the story you attach to it, about your worth, your dignity, your value. Jung explained this in many ways, but one idea always comes back. Every emotional storm holds the seed of growth, if you can stop focusing on the surface and dig deep to the root. And that root is always in the unconscious. The unconscious isn't just a dump for old memories. It's the hidden framework that shapes how you see everything. It's where your reactions come from, why certain things make you angry, why sadness hits you the way it does, why you keep repeating the same mistakes even when you're desperate to change. It's where the projections start, the ones that twist your relationships, feed your fears, and create expectations that keep letting you down. It's where that inner emptiness lives. But when you start bringing this material into the light, when you connect your current struggles to unresolved parts of your past, when you realize you're not actually facing new pain, just old pain in a new disguise, it shakes you to your core. Nothing can stay the same after that. You can't keep blaming the world for your inner chaos. You can't keep waiting for someone to save you. And you can't stay asleep to your own patterns without betraying yourself. That's the moment when real maturity begins, psychological maturity, the kind that means owning your emotions, your thoughts, your choices. And in that deep acceptance, something powerful shows up. Not the kind of strength that numbs you or turns you to stone, but the strength of someone who can feel everything without falling apart. Someone who can love fully without becoming needy. Someone who can lose without being shattered. Someone who can be rejected and still see themselves clearly. Because that person no longer needs agreement, approval, admiration, or permanence from anyone else. Their center is rooted within. What used to be an aching emptiness, needing outside validation, is now full, with their own presence. And from that place, they no longer need to wear masks, play roles, or use charm to be accepted. They've accepted themselves. They've faced their dark sides and didn't run. They've felt uncomfortable emotions and didn't self-destruct. They've acknowledged their darkest thoughts and still stood tall. It's that loyalty to yourself, the willingness to sit with your imperfections and not abandon who you are, that lays the foundation for an unshakable life. Jung described individuation as the path to becoming whole, an integration of all the parts of yourself. It's not a path with shortcuts. You can't fake it. It asks you to face everything you've ever denied in yourself. Not to fix or punish you, but to reconcile, to stop living in the exhausting gap between who you pretend to be and who you really are. Because here's the thing, as long as you keep rejecting parts of yourself, they'll keep showing up in other ways, as anxiety, blame, projection, or self-sabotage. The enemy you don't acknowledge becomes the one silently working against you. That's why the road to emotional freedom isn't about avoiding problems on the outside. It's about integrating what's inside. It's not about shutting down emotions. It's about learning to face them with awareness. Not about running from how you feel, but finally stopping the fight against your own feelings. When you stop that fight, the world outside loses its power to scare you. Because when you're at peace with who you are, when you stop hiding, when you don't need a mask, what other people say or do can't knock you over. You're no longer in conflict. And when there's no inner war, nothing on the outside can really defeat you. You can walk through chaos without becoming chaos. You can hear criticism without taking it personally. You can feel pain without being swallowed by it. Because you've faced it, you've lived through it, and you've stopped running. You're just here. You're present. That's what Jung was trying to show us through his work. A way to be whole, to stop being split between who you are and who you think you have to be. Because that split, that disconnect, is what causes so much of our unnecessary suffering. It makes you overly sensitive to what others think. It ties your self-worth to whether or not someone else loves you. It makes you overreact to things that really don't have power on their own, because it's never about the event. It's about the meaning you attach to it. And that meaning comes from your wounds, your beliefs, your unconscious programming. But here's the powerful part. When you bring that programming into awareness, when you rewrite the story from a more conscious place, the things that once hurt you lose their grip. What used to throw you off now feels irrelevant. What used to consume you fades into the background because you've changed. You're no longer in survival mode. You're in presence. You're not just reacting. You're creating. You're grounded. You're regulating yourself. And that's the most valuable skill you can build. Emotional self-regulation. Being okay. Not because the world is perfect, but because you've learned how to hold yourself through anything. You know how to check in with yourself before you lash out. How to comfort yourself before demanding it from someone else. That's where real freedom begins. Not the shallow version of freedom, where you just do whatever you want, but deep emotional freedom. The kind that frees you from being controlled by others, by your past, by your fears, by your need to be understood, by the ache of not being loved back. That kind of freedom is the result of inner work. It's the gift you receive when you're brave enough to step into your shadow and discover that it holds nothing that can actually destroy you. Only parts of you that have been waiting to be seen. And once you see them, once you embrace them, they stop attacking from the inside. They become your strength, your insight, your power. From this quiet, steady, and lasting strength, you begin to move through life differently. You're no longer chasing approval. You're not bending over backwards, trying to make everyone happy. You don't fall apart when someone doesn't choose you, because you've already chosen yourself. And that choice, fully standing by yourself, is what builds an inner foundation so strong it can withstand anything. Uncertainty, change, pain. Not because those things stop hurting, but because you've learned that pain doesn't have to break you. That feeling deeply doesn't mean losing control. That being whole doesn't require neediness. That love isn't rooted in fear. That living your life doesn't mean giving yourself away. And then you hit a point of no return. That moment when you know you can't go back to who you were before. Not because something outside you changed. Not because someone finally treated you right. Or because the world suddenly became fair. No, it's because you woke up. Because what you once only sensed, you now fully understand. You now know. You were never weak because you felt. You were never foolish for loving. You weren't naive for letting yourself open up. You were human, just not fully conscious. Back then, you were carried away by your wounds, by the holes inside you, by internal patterns you never consciously chose but that dictated everything. That's no longer the case. You're different now. And you can't unsee what you've come to understand. You now recognize where your pain comes from, why you react the way you do, the patterns you've repeated over and over. And once you've seen the truth of your own story, you can't stay passive. What used to hurt you now teaches you. What used to drag you down now pushes you forward. You've transformed your relationship with conflict, rejection, abandonment, criticism, and lack. You've stopped looking outside yourself for safety, and you've built it within. You're no longer afraid of being alone, because now solitude is your teacher. You no longer need others to validate you. You've learned to face yourself with honesty, with compassion, and with fierce clarity. And from that inner stillness, from this deep alignment with yourself, a new way of existing emerges. Quiet, yet unshakable. A presence that doesn't scream for attention, but simply is. A peace that doesn't depend on outside stability, but on intentional choices. A self-worth that doesn't rise and fall with emotion, but stays rooted in who you are. In this new way of being, your entire reality starts to shift. Not because people change, but because you've stopped needing them to. Not because life got easier, but because you've stopped resisting it. Not because chaos disappeared, but because it no longer defines you. You've grasped what Jung emphasized over and over again. What you fight controls you. What you reject in yourself, you project onto the world. What you refuse to integrate ends up running your life. But what you accept, you transform. You're no longer split in two. You're not lost in confusion. You're not trapped in expectation. You've let go. You've turned inward. You've breathed. And in doing so, you've found yourself. This is how you come to understand that the world no longer has the power to hurt you. No one can take anything from you unless you give it to them. No one can wound you without your unconscious permission. Every pain that seems to come from the outside only strikes when it touches something unresolved within. But now, you've healed those wounds, not through ego, not through pride, and not by pushing them away. You healed through love, through awareness, through truth. You've become the witness to your own story. You've touched the pain, faced your shadow, and embraced it. And in that courageous act, you set yourself free. You've become what Jung called the self, that unshakable core that remains steady in life's storms. The part of you that observes, that receives, that chooses. The silent witness that doesn't react out of habit, but responds with clarity. That doesn't need to justify itself, because it understands. That never gets truly lost, because it always finds its way back. You don't need to control everything anymore. You don't need approval, justification, or a way out, because you're fully with yourself. Everything you once chased in others, you now build from within. What you used to fear losing no longer defines your value. What once drove you out of emptiness has now been seen, exposed, and integrated. And from this place, this wholeness, you can be around others without clinging. You can love without needing to possess. You can say no without guilt. You can face conflict without losing your calm. You can live in peace even when the world is noisy, because real peace doesn't depend on outer silence. It comes from not letting the noise get in. When this understanding goes beyond a thought, when it becomes something you live, something powerful shifts. The outside world starts to reflect your new inner state. Your relationships become more honest. Life stops feeling like a constant struggle. It turns into an opportunity to express your true self. You stop hiding. You stop waiting. You stop begging for love, attention, or presence. You no longer ask for permission to exist. You stop shrinking yourself to fit in. You stop betraying who you are just to be accepted. Because now you know you are enough. Not because you're perfect, but because you're real. From this grounded authenticity, from this quiet confidence, your true life begins. A life where you look others in the eye without fear, where you speak your truth without trembling, where you can be alone and not feel empty, where you can feel everything without breaking, where your choices are free, not forced, where no one and nothing has the power to sway you. Because you've come home to yourself, you've stopped giving your power away. You remember who you were before the pain, before the masks, before the conditioning. You've reclaimed yourself, not out of rage, not to prove anything, but out of pure dignity. That's what true freedom looks like. Not isolating from the world, but learning to be fully in it without losing who you are. Not shutting down your feelings, but no longer being ruled by them. Not dominating others, but realizing you don't need control. Not having all the answers, but being okay with the unknown. Not trying to impress, but simply being yourself. And that, finally, is enough. And once you live from this place, you no longer fear pain, because you know how to walk through it. You're not scared of conflict, because you know how to meet it calmly. Loss doesn't break you, because you know how to hold yourself. Rejection doesn't define you, because you don't reject yourself anymore. Criticism doesn't shake you, because your worth isn't tied to your image. Judgment doesn't hold you back, because you've let go of the need to be liked. Life stops being a fight to avoid pain and becomes a dance of conscious expression, because now you know everything you need is already within you. No one can give you what you haven't first given yourself. The outside world only affects your inner world when you let it, and other people only reflect what you're ready to see or what you're still running from. Carl Jung didn't come to teach us how to change the world. He came to show us how to change our relationship with it. He reminded us that suffering isn't the enemy, it's the messenger.